Good morning. Humid enough for you? My name is Nina Hance, and I'm your worship associate for this morning. Welcome to those of you who are here in person at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke, and we extend a special welcome if you're here for the first time. Please join us for coffee hour after the service so we can get to know you a little bit better. There are also people watching us on YouTube, so we welcome them. If you all would just turn around and wave to our YouTube friends. Hi, YouTube-verse. It's like Barbie-verse, but not quite as pink. Yeah. If you are on YouTube and would have a joy or concern that you would like us to share during Lifelines, please put that into the chat function in the next 15 minutes. A reminder for everyone right now to please check your cell phone. Make sure it's either on silent or off. You know it's going to go off. Our minister is the Reverend Walter LaFleur, but today we have Dr. Laura Hartman in the pulpit. She is a professor at Roanoke College. You'll learn a little bit more about her later. And her sermon for us today is Fellow Travelers Towards a Greener, More Just Future. UUCR acknowledges with gratitude and reverence that our church resides on land used by the Tutelo and Monacan nations. Please join us in the words of welcome. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you express your identity, whatever your situation in life, whatever your experience of the holy, as you come seeking love, your presence here is a gift. Whether you are filled with sadness, overflowing with joy, needing to be alone with yourself, or eager to engage with others. All who welcome all are welcome here. At UUCR, we commit to supporting each other with respect and direct communication as we work in community to explore spiritual growth and to be a force for good in the world. Our first opening hymn this morning is in the hymnal. It's number 38. If you would please, if you're able, rise and join us.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden so plain. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
Well done channeling your inner Cat Stevens. Our opening words this morning are from Sheila Briggs. The ironic, the tragic, the absurd, utopias and paradises lost, all find their expression in brick and marble, concrete and steel, the presence or absence of green spaces, the breadth and layout of the streets. We must recognize the God-bearing capacity of our earthly cities.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, O Spirit of life.
Hello. I'd like to invite all my young friends to come down. My name is Jessie. I'm the Director of Lifespan Faith Development here. And if you feel young at heart, you're welcome to come down too. So I always ask you guys a question, and today is no different. What is your favorite part of your house? The kitchen, your bed. Anybody else? Bed, bedroom, kitchen, laundry room. That's an to clean your clothes. Who are you? I don't even like doing laundry. I think my favorite part is the window in my office because there's a squirrel that lives in the tree right outside, and I swear he's listening to me when I'm talking on Zooms with my mom. I think he thinks he's part of the family. What lives outside of your house? Neighbors, other people, deer, squirrels. Who else? Deer. birds, bunnies, a dog, a cat. I have someone else's house here. Who lives in this house? A bird. Where'd I get it? My friend Pam gave it to me. Yes. So, what would happen to that squirrel if I decided to chop down his tree? He would lose his home. I don't know that he would go quite so far as dying, but if that's where he ate and lived and everything, he would probably suffer. You're right. What would happen to the birds that live in that tree if I chopped that tree down? Have to find a new home. Their eggs would crack. What if I decided to chop down all the trees that were too close to my house? Somebody just said profit. Hey, if I could sell those trees, maybe I would chop them all down. I would turn into the guy from the Lorax. Yeah, we all know the story of the Lorax. Yeah, it's so should I chop down all those trees? What if I said, "Oh, it's okay, I can chop them down. I'm going to build more trees in Spain." I don't know how I'd build more trees. Good question. I'll plant trees in Spain. It's not even, it's not equal. What if I decided to chop down only the trees I needed to build my mom a house on my property, and then we replanted some trees further out on my property? That's a good idea? Is my property big enough? No, I live in an apartment. So these are all excellent questions. These are all questions that you guys can ask us, these adults. I make you do this all the time too, but look at all these grown-ups out here. These are all questions that you can ask them when you see trees being chopped down, when you see big buildings being built up. We all, humans, need a place to live. We have a right to having shelter. But we need to make sure that our friends who live in nests, who live in other habitats, have a place to live too. And we're going to go upstairs and explore a different habitat with lots of fun, gross stuff. Are you ready? Well, we're doing it anyway. Let's go.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. Everywhere you may go.
This is from Mr. Travis Norville from Church on the Move. I discovered that bus trips offered a course in human studies. Liberals like me may talk about diversity and economic inequality, but many of us rarely spend extended time with the poor or share space with the diverse populations of our city. Riding the bus, I found myself sitting or standing beside a Somali woman, reading Barbara Einrich's Not Nickel and Dimed. A father of 5 en route from the midnight shift at McDonald's to his daytime job cleaning offices. A woman with a disability and her aide, a recent college graduate on her way to a job interview, and school kids making their way across the city to the library. Riding in the seclusion of my car had kept me from contact or communion with all of these people. I had often prayed for my city, but I had little idea who or what I was praying for until I rode the bus. Dr. Laura Hartman was born and raised in Kentucky, where she learned to love trees and mountains. She earned a PhD in religious studies with a focus on environmental ethics from UVA. After 10 years teaching in the Midwest, she finally returned to Virginia when Roanoke College hired her to teach environmental humanities. Her teaching and research focuses on environmental justice in its many forms. She is a founding member of both Roanoke Area Interfaith Stewards of the Earth and Bus Riders of Roanoke Advocacy Group. When not working for the college or with these groups, she can be found enjoying local theater, urban hiking, or spending time with her wife, child, and golden retriever. Dr. Hartman.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. I really, really appreciate the invitation, and I appreciate your time and attention this morning. As you may be aware, I am here to talk about buses. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the Bible. I know, you're Unitarians. Half the people in the room got really tense when I said the word Bible. Didn't they tell her what kind of church this is? Don't worry, you can handle this. We're operating at mostly a metaphorical level here. And yes, it's all connected. I have read that in Athens, Greece, they call the buses metaphora. It's the Greek word for transfer. So let's have fun with buses and metaphors, all right? I really want to share with you an interpretation that I recently heard from Pastor Colleen Montgomery from All Places Together, which is a ministry of the ELCA Lutheran Church in Virginia. So I want to give her credit. This was largely her idea, but then I applied it to my own interests. All right, so to refresh our memories, at the end of the book of Genesis, there is a famine. There's no food anywhere. The people of Israel, Jacob and his kin, are facing certain death. But they hear that there is food in Egypt, so they go there. And who do Jacob's children meet but their long-lost brother Joseph? Joseph, who they had tormented and left for dead, they sold into slavery in Egypt, he had worked his way up through the Egyptian hierarchy to the point that he was responsible for the food stores that got that community through the famine. Egypt had food because of Joseph. The people of Israel had food because they came to Egypt. Egypt was salvation. Until it wasn't. The book of Genesis ends, we start the book of Exodus. It's several generations later. The Israelites are still in Egypt, but Egypt is no longer salvation for them. Egypt is slavery, literally. Over time in Egypt, the people became enslaved. A leadership team emerges, Moses, his brother Aaron, their sister Miriam. They're called by God to set the people free from their enslavement. You know the story. Pharaoh doesn't want to let them go. God sends 10 plagues, ending with the death of firstborn children, and they finally escape. But then Pharaoh's army pursues them through the Red Sea, and there's a miracle. They make it through the Red Sea. You know the story. Now, the liberation in Exodus is not simple. Moses has to harangue the powers that hold his people captive. The people themselves have to become willing to let go of their own enslavement. Once they're free out in the wilderness, they find themselves missing their earlier lives. They get all mixed up and they worship the wrong gods. It's kind of a mess. It's not a straight trajectory. But God is the guiding principle in the story, okay? And God has a destination in mind for them, a promised land. God here is imaged as one who liberates the people out of slavery and into a better life. So I want to read this passage from Exodus 15:13. This is directed towards God. In your steadfast love, you led the people whom you redeemed. You guided them by your strength to your holy abode. In your steadfast love, you led the people whom you redeemed. You guided them by your strength to your holy abode. That's a good summary, right? That encapsulates the whole thing. This holy abode, the promised land, the better life, the vision. And that's part of where I'm going with this. I know that many of you, like me, experience double vision. We see what is, and then we see what should be. We have a vision of a better world that's sort of layered over top of this world. It's like a Pokemon Go augmented reality thing. And it introduces a tension. When I can see what should be, I'm no longer content with what is. It's a holy restlessness that I feel in my soul. And this is where Moses' statement, let my people go, comes from. This strong sense that what is not right. What should be is calling. The future is beckoning. Can you hear it? Can you see it? All right. So I'm interested in what we might call a green transition. I know you all share this interest because the seventh principle of Unitarian Universalism, respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part, I think that would support the idea that we need to change what we do as individuals and as a society in order to lessen our harm to the web of life. We want to change from harming ecosystems on which we depend to helping those ecosystems instead. Furthermore, the second principle of justice, equity, and compassion also calls us to make these changes in ways that respect everyone, especially the most vulnerable among us. We want a green transition, but also a just transition. So let's take a moment to imagine a greener and more just future. How would we live? How would we work? How would we get around? Feel free to close your eyes. I'm going to spin an image and picture what I'm about to describe. Let yourself embroider the details, or feel free to disagree if you have a different vision for your own purposes. But let me also emphasize, this is not idle dreaming. This is collective visioning. We can't change without a vision of what that change should look like. Okay, so here's my version, kind of a prompt for your own creativity. We would power our homes, our churches, our schools, and other buildings with renewable power. There would be solar panels everywhere and small wind turbines too, a dispersed electrical grid. The buildings would be as energy efficient as possible, with good insulation, but also the option to open a window when the weather is nice. Neighbors would help each other fix up houses. There would be no slumlords, just resident owner co-ops and houses, and the people would be shown the love and respect they deserve. All the land that is not actively being used would be native plantings, largely forest, or else gardens. There would be dense tree cover next to every street, and not just in the richest neighborhoods, but all over the city. The presence of those trees would provide shade in the hot summers and lower the energy needs in the buildings year-round. Violence would diminish because people would be in the presence of beauty everywhere. Gardens would be plentiful, and maybe there would be a gardening co-op, an army of gardeners who cultivate yards all around the city and feed everyone who is hungry. They could work with a whole host of chefs who put up preserves to eat in the off-season. Institutions would actively eliminate food waste, and the few scraps that remain would be composted. The city would maybe pick up composting along with the recycling and the trash. But there wouldn't even be much trash, because we would have an extended producer responsibility law that forces companies to take back their own products and packaging, creating an incentive for reuse and repair. Reuse. And, true bulk, the kind where you bring your own containers, that would be the default mode in our food stores and other establishments as well. And of course, we probably wouldn't be eating very much meat, and we'd be eating local seasonal foods. We do a lot of canning and preserving, so even in the off-season, we'd do okay nutritionally. I could go on, but you get the idea, right? You've probably had similar visions, haven't you? So when we spin visions like this, when we imagine our greener and more just future, what's going on with transportation? I'm guessing that you would envision, water break. I'm guessing that you would envision a greener, more just future with a lot of bicycles and a lot of walking, right? I'm right there with you. I love biking and walking. I gotta say though, I don't think that's gonna cut it for everyone. We're also gonna need some public transit. Now, right about now, some of you are thinking, electric cars? What about electric cars? Okay, so let me start there. I love electric cars too. Yay, electric cars. But I gotta tell you, there are two problems with electric cars. One is batteries, right? You're mining minerals like lithium, which is pretty darn bad. And frankly, there actually isn't enough lithium in the world for all the many, many cars to be transitioned into electric cars. So we have to reduce the total number of cars as well if we transition to electric. But the other problem with electric cars is that they're still cars. They still create sprawl, which is where the homes and businesses are spread out rather than densely packed. They still require parking lots, which I have a whole other sermon worth of ideas about. They still slough off tire dust. Are y'all aware of this? As your tires wear down, where do you think that matter goes? It goes into the river, that's where, right? It goes into our stormwater. And they still create deadly speed for vulnerable road users like pedestrians and our animal neighbors. God, roadkill. Doesn't it just break your heart? Talk about innocent victims. We can and should do better. Guess what I think is better? Buses. Yeah. they're better because they're collective transportation. So even though they do involve either batteries or diesel gas and tires, and hence the tire dust, these impacts are a lot better per person. The solutions are not individual, y'all. The solutions are collective, okay? Out of all the gas-powered vehicles, including hybrid gas-electric cars, buses create the least amount of emissions per passenger. We are more energy efficient when we share space in one vehicle rather than spreading out among several vehicles. Buses also don't create sprawl or require huge parking lots like cars do. Buses thrive best in density, not in sprawl. But that's not the only reason I love buses. Buses are instruments of justice. Did you know that the first bus that was called a bus was developed in Nantes, France in 1862? It was called the omnibus, which means for everyone in Latin. Buses are for everyone, literally. That's a major instrument of equality right there. Additionally, however, buses, as I'm sure you're aware, have figured prominently in the fight for racial equality in this country. I know you've heard of Rosa Parks, who famously sparked the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955 to fight segregation. The Freedom Riders, though, they also rode buses, intercity buses, to fight segregation. Way before either of those, however, our lovely city of Roanoke had our own freedom fighter, Ms. Margie Jumper. Anyone know about Margie Jumper? All right, all right. In the early 1940s, when she was in her 20s, she refused to give up her seat on the segregated trolley and was removed by force and arrested, just like Rosa Parks. She served on the NAACP for years. She was a strong supporter of the African American community in Roanoke. We should be very inspired by this history in our own town. By the way, there are people working on naming the bus station after her, so let me know if you want to work on that project. But it's not just about segregation. Did you know that buses were also a major site of protests relating to the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act? Denise McQuaid is a name that is not as famous as Rosa Parks, but in some sense should be. She and others staged bus stop protests in New York City in the 1980s. They would wheel their wheelchairs around the bus after it stopped so it couldn't move without running them over. Basically, they were effectively stranding any bus that could not accommodate passengers in wheelchairs. Again, justice. The bus is the place to make justice happen. Buses can be instruments of justice. And even in a more everyday sense, as that reading from Travis Norvell mentions, riding the bus is an opportunity to get to know your fellow human beings and your own city better. Elsewhere in his book, he writes, "What you lose in speed, you gain in relationships." Listen to that. What you lose in speed, you gain in relationships. I mean, if we're envisioning a better life, isn't that where it's at? On your deathbed, will you regret that you didn't move through the city faster? No, but you might regret that you didn't have more and better relationships. Norvell writes that human beings are social creatures. We desire company. We did not evolve over millions of years to transit alone. We need to share space. We need our senses to be aroused by the communities around us. So I want to introduce you to a concept that I recently read about. Secessionist automobility. Secessionist automobility. Yeah, chew on that. The idea is that we secede from public life into our private automobiles. And yes, there is a racial dimension to this. You've heard of the phenomenon of white flight, right? This is where white people left the inner cities for the suburbs, in part at least because they didn't want to share space with Black people. How do you think that white flight happened? In cars. And that's just one example of this secessionist automobility. Think about how you got here this morning. If you drove, then you probably went from your private house into your private car, into the parking lot of the church, which is not public space in the most robust sense, and then into the church. You didn't set foot in truly public space once. You only encountered the other through the glass windows of your car. What if I told you that you and me and all of us are lonelier than our ancestors because our lives are so insulated from anyone considered other? What if I told you that car is a prison? For those who are wondering when I'm going to get back around to Moses in Egypt, wonder no longer. Here we are. Get on board. This metaphora is about to take off. Automobility. It was liberation at first. People in rural areas with limited options, women who were stranded at home, it was such freedom to be able to hop in a car and go. Although I do feel compelled to note that bikes did this first. We have paved roads because of the early bicycle lobby. Women used bicycles as the first tools of liberation right off the bat. This is why they invented bloomers. You know this, right? It's interesting stuff. But anyway, at this time, cars were terrific. They really were freedom. And for some, they really were salvation. Until they weren't. Many of you are sitting here thinking, is she saying we should stop using our cars? Because how would I possibly get anywhere or get anything done without my car? And that's my point, actually. We've been tricked. We're backed into a corner. And now we are imprisoned. We are enslaved. You can't do anything without your car, right? Neither can I. I'm in the same boat. At this point, it's a concerted effort. I make a concerted effort on my part for one day a week, one day, when I do not drive a car. And that's hard, okay? But why are we so stuck? How did we end up here? Do you see what I'm saying? It is like slavery. Okay, it's a stretch metaphor, okay? I'm not saying it's as much suffering as people who are genuinely enslaved, but you see the metaphor, right? What used to be salvation has become a prison. My job here today is to shine a light on the disconnect between what is and what should be. So I'm here to say it doesn't have to be this way. I'm here to say let my people go. Even if we wanted to, we can't let go of our cars, even though there are so many reasons to move beyond them. Did you know that cars kill almost 1,000 people every year in Virginia alone? They are the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in our state, almost half of our greenhouse gas emissions. They are truly killing our children's future. I mean, talk about a plague on the firstborns. They require us to pave over God's green earth just to store them. But we can't let go. We can't let go of our cars because the alternatives are not good enough. Yet. In the green future I envision, cars are only allowed on a few streets. Most streets are full of bikes and trikes and scooters and pedestrians. In the green future I envision, practically no one really needs a car. Maybe there are a few vans available for rent when you have to move furniture or something. And some people with disabilities might need a car, fine, if the transit isn't good enough for them. But the transit, in the green future I envision, the transit is amazing. Maybe it's buses, maybe it's trolleys or trams. Heck, how about a funicular? The point is the service comes so often, you don't have to memorize the schedule, you just get on. It's clean, it's safe, and when you get on the bus, you see people you know. You catch up on the latest gossip. You wave to a cute baby. You enjoy the view out the window. You're not stressed out by driving because the driver is a professional who loves their job and is well paid, and it's way safer than you could ever be. And when you arrive at your destination, you feel cared for by our community because the service exists, it works well, and it treats you with dignity. We're not there yet. But how do we get to that greener future? By building the foundations under the castles in the air. There are amazing people already working towards this just and green transition. Some people are reforming the energy systems. God bless them. Some people are reforming the food systems. God bless them. Some people are reforming land use and stormwater, double blessings on them. All of these reforms, there is so much holy creativity there. We haven't reached that promised land yet, but we can see it. We can see it on the horizon. As you know, I am a part of BRAG, which is Bus Riders of Roanoke Advocacy Group. There are, I believe, 2 people from BRAG here today. So Maynard is here and Elizabeth is here. Would you guys wave? Yay. Talk to them after the service. We are doing our own reforming. We are trying to help the bus system of Roanoke to become the best that it can be. One of our slogans is, "A great city deserves great transit." We're trying to call our city and our bus system into greatness because we have a vision of a bus system that serves everyone well. We're not there yet. Although Margie Jumper had to sit in the back of her trolley car, she still enjoyed more frequent and extensive service than our neighbors do today. With great respect to the wonderful people who work day in and day out to transport all of our sweet souls around our city, our transit system stinks. It only comes once an hour. Did you know that? It ends at 8 p.m. Doesn't even run on Sundays. It stops at the line between city and county. There's a large gap between the transit we envision, the transit we deserve, and the transit we have. In our city, the most transit dependent are also the least privileged, the most marginalized. Ever since people of color won the right to a desegregated bus, the white people fled public transit in favor of cars. Secessionist automobility. We built suburbs where owning a car was a prerequisite to living there. That's one way to make sure higher class people don't have to mix with lower class people, am I right? These are ugly realities, but we have to face them if we are to honor principle number 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The very layout of our streets, those untouchable suburbs in the county where no buses ever go, has codified the racism of the past. But as Sheila Briggs writes, we must recognize the God-bearing capacity of our earthly cities. It is possible to mitigate past harms by mending rifts. Transit. Good transit, the transit we envision and that all of us, especially marginalized people, deserve, can mend those rifts. It starts with each of us. If you have never ridden the bus, let me invite you to try it. You will see parts of the city you've never seen. You will meet people you would never have met. You will be surprised how clean and comfortable and professional the whole experience is. One of Bragg's missions is to bring buses and bus riders out of the shadows and into the light. So please shine your light onto our transit system by paying attention to it and experiencing it. Bragg has seen some small improvements as a result of our efforts. Right after we brought up the gap in service during evenings and Sundays to the city council, the city announced that they would use stimulus money to create an on-demand transit service. And when we hadn't heard any progress about that service for a year, then we spoke up again, and within a week, there was a call for proposals. We're squeaking the wheel, and we hope to see on-demand microtransit come to fruition before the end of 2023. So that would operate in the evenings and on Sundays. So hopefully soon you could take a bus here to worship on Sunday. Wouldn't that be nice? But there's a lot more to be done, and we can't do it alone. We would love for you to join us. We meet the first Thursday of every month, 5:30, Gainsborough Library. We need your help. But also, I believe we need help from a higher power, because here's the truth. These green futures that we envision, the green energy, the food, the transportation, they're possible, but they're also a real stretch. They're a real reach, because humans are human. I personally believe that we fallible human beings cannot get there alone. I believe we need help from someone or something superhuman to truly save ourselves from impending ecological and social catastrophe. I believe that with all my heart. And this is why I pray daily for God's help in moving us forward towards a greener, more just future. So if you will permit me, I would like to end in prayer. God of many names, we know that what starts as a good thing may become enslavement. Grant us the courage and the creativity to question systems that cause harm, and forgive us for our complicity in that harm. Grant us the grace and clarity to let go of what no longer serves justice and wholeness. Deliver us from the false freedom of individualism, and gather us into beloved communities of fellow travelers towards a better future. Free us from captivity and deliver us to your holy abode, your promised land. May it be so. Amen.
The work of this church requires both physical and financial support. Please give as you are able and enjoy the accompaniment this morning.
Ever since the days of old, men would search for wealth untold. They dig for silver and for gold and leave the empty holes. And way down south in the Everglades, where the black water rolls and the sawgrass sways, eagles fly and the otters play in the land of the Seminole. So blow, blow, Seminole wind, blow like you're never gonna blow again. I'm calling to you like a long lost friend, but I don't know who you are. And blow, blow from the Okeechobee all the way up to Micanopy. Blow across the home of the Seminole, the alligators and the guard. Progress came and took its toll, and in the name of flood control, they made their plans and they drained the land. Now the glades are going dry. And the last time I walked in the swamp, I sat upon a cypress rock. I listened close and I heard the ghost of Osceola cry. So blow, blow, Seminole wind, blow like you're never gonna blow again. Calling to you like a long lost friend, but I don't know who you are. And blow, blow from the Okeechobee all the way up to Micanopy. Blow across the home of the Seminole, the alligators and the guard.
Good morning. I'm Terry Smith, here to represent the Caring Committee today. Lifelines is the time of our service when we share the joys and concerns of members of our community. If you have some information you'd like to share with the congregation, you can write it in our journal, which is available on the altar before and after services, and in the alcove by the name board during the week. You can also send your announcements to the church office or call on a member of the Caring Committee. Excuse me. Some sad news to share this week. Susie Newton's 98-year-old stepdad died last week. Ward Riggins was his name, had an interest in everything and had books on every subject. His favorite things in life were Susie's mom, ice cream, and Hershey bars. And happy news, happy birthday to Betty Bright. There's a lot of us here who love you and wish you well. At home by your computer, I imagine. Also, I'd like to make everyone aware that our dear Rosalie Sutherland has taken a health turn and has gone to Friendship Manor North for some rehabilitation. She was having issues with arthritis and severe pain. Actually called the church, and this is where miracles happen. Carrie happened to be here, our music director. Jesse was also working. So between the two of them, they picked her up, got her over to the emergency room, stayed with her at Lewis Gale Hospital, where she spent a couple of nights. Her son from California and his wife have arrived to be with her now. So this is, we hope, a temporary relocation for Rosalie. And you can send her cards. It's rather lengthy, but if you take notes, then I won't have to repeat it 5 times later. You have to use her married name, Rosalie Stump. And you need to include her room number, 3002. And the address to Friendship Manor North is 327 Hirschberger Road, zips 24012. Sure, I will do that. Oh, well, that's very thoughtful, Lorraine. I'll be glad to do that. So I want to give special thanks to our more than employees, staff members for helping out. And also to Jane Harrison and Sherry Bernath, who as close friends and caring people stepped right in to be there for Rosalie. So we'll all keep her in our thoughts. And on a final note, final for this week, you won't be seeing me for the next few Sundays. I'm on to have my long-awaited hip surgery replacement on September the 7th. That's why I'm in a mask today. I'm not taking any chances on contracting anything to keep me from the OR on September 7th. It's basically an outpatient procedure. I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to get my tennis game back in sync. Oh, I'm not done. It's candles. I can do it, thank you. We all carry special joys or concerns in our hearts. If you'd like to come forward at this time and light a candle for what you may hold within, please use both sides of the table. Thank you.
Far beyond the grasp of hands, or light to meet the eye, past the reaches of the mind. There find the key to nature's harmony, in an architecture so entwined. Like the birds whose pattern grace the sky, and carry all who join in love expanding the message of peace will rise in flight, taking the weight of the world upon its wings. In the oneness of everything. Like the birds whose patterns grace the sky and carry all who join in love expanding, the message of peace will rise in flight, taking the weight of the world upon its wings. In the oneness of everything.
May our hearts be comforted and our spirits at rest.
Lots of announcements this morning. Right here. I won't read them all. Just keep in mind, we're starting new Living the Pledge to End Racism workshops starting in the fall. Contact Teresa Poole, Dotsie Clifton, Lorraine Fleck, Dana Martin, or Joan Wages if you're interested in that. We're in the donation period right now for the live auction. You can get in touch with Sherry Bernath. Green Team is having an energy rally on the corner today. Good day to do it if we don't get rained on. The Endowment Committee is reminding everyone, and this applies, Reading Seeds I know is applying for this. We have the M&M Foundation deadline coming up on September 15th. And church offices will be closed next Monday for Labor Day. One more announcement that is not on here, speaking of Reading Seeds, we are recruiting in-person readers to go to our two Head Start programs, Grandin Court and Brandon Hardin Sims. Right now we have two trainings, in-person trainings planned just to kind of go over, this is what we need to do with the kids, September 7th in the evening, September 9th on a Saturday morning. If you are interested in either one of those or in reading with the children, would you please contact Judy Robertson back there? You can talk to me, Leah Whitney. Who else is here today? From Ann Hackworth or Heather Mason would be great. Now I think we have the still friskies.
Well, they paid paradise, put up a parking with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't always seem to come that you don't know what you've got till it's gone. They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. Ooh, ba 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 ba. Ooh, ba 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 ba. You took all the trees, put up a tree museum. And they charge the people $25 just to see them. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone. It takes paradise, put up a parking lot. Ooh, ba 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 ba. Ooh, ba 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 ba. Pay
farmer, farmer, put away that DDT now. Give me sparks on my apples, but leave me the birds and the bees. Please, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone. It takes paradise, put up a parking lot. Ooh, ba, 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 ba. Ooh, ba, 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 ba. Late last night, I heard the screen door slam, and a big yellow taxi took away my old man. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? It takes paradise, put up a parking lot. Ooh, ba, 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 ba. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? It takes paradise, put up a parking lot. Ooh, ba, 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 ba. It takes paradise, put up a parking lot. Ooh, ba, 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 ba. It takes paradise, put up a parking lot.
So I want to mention that in the coffee hour, some members of Bragg are happy to talk with you more about what we're up to. Here is the benediction. In your steadfast love, you led the people whom you redeemed. You guided them by your strength to your holy abode. In other words, the future is calling, y'all. Let's get going.
Go and embrace your day, full of possibilities and hope.